Hey folks, Funky Experience here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about this deck that I found on Goldfish. It's a deck that 5-0'd a league recently. It really caught my attention for two reasons. One is because it's kind of off the map. Like it's not a deck that I've seen a lot. Um, and at the same time, it does a lot of things that I've been thinking about for the format. So, as you might know, I've been playing Grixis Affinity just kind of like as a baseline deck, just to play some games, learn the format, where I like have a deck that is powerful enough on its own that gives you the opportunity for powerful plays, but at the same time, there's no like secret interactions or special combos that you need to assemble. It's just like pure value card for card. Um, so that's still my deck of choice, but I've also been thinking about the kind of matchups I've been seeing, the kind of um, gameplay I would like to move towards beyond just affinity, not because I want to give up affinity, but just in general, right? Like theory crafting. And I really like this deck because it does a few things that I think I would want in a deck in the format. The first and most urgent is a good mono red aggro matchup. So definitely you're talking about breath weapon, shaman, um, you know, removal, etc. Um, Definitely chrysalis, right? So like this big body that can just stonewall a lot of creature-based decks and grow into something insane. Um, and then just the sack recursion value grindy approach that is common to Affinity and Jund Wildfire and Golgari Gardens, right? Like the Wellspring into offering type thing. But what I liked about this deck specifically is that there's a few interactions here that are really cool. So the first thing is something that I've thought about is with the unbanning of Bonder's Ornament, you're seeing a lot of Tron decks coming back, or at least like slow. Yeah, mostly Tron playing Bonder's Ornament. And I thought whether there was an opportunity to kind of like sideboard in your own ornaments to kind of negate their card advantage, right? Um, because when somebody activates ornament, it's for whoever owns one, right? So I was thinking it would be funny to just kind of like side them in during a matchup like that. But so here this is not a Tron deck, but it is running ornament, right? So that caught my attention, and of course like this is a pretty controlling deck, um, slow mid-rangey value driven. I like the snow lands with Scred, just kind of being able to deal 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. How many lands? 10, 11, 12. We have 12 snow lands. So like just this is probably like the best one mana removal in the format. We have cast down, which is unconditional removal. And then I noticed you also have Evolution Witness as a one-off. Like there's a bunch of spicy one-offs in this deck. Wildling, Hunter, Pulse, Witness, Breath Weapon, at least in the main, the Campfire. And I noticed first of all you have Evolution Witness, which interacts quite favorably with Offering. So like you can sack a Wellspring, get a map, explore on the Witness, get the Wellspring back. If they kill the Witness, you can Pulse of Murasa the Witness, adapt, get the Pulse of Murasa back, right? Like it doesn't this doesn't run Blood Fountain or anything like that, but there's like these kind of interactions where you can get back even wildlings, or you can sack like a Tithing Blade, get it back. Lembas, well, Lembas gets shuffled back, but you know what I mean. I think there's a few things here that are working really well that I'm curious to try. Again, like it's not uh, a popular deck. It kind of does a few things from other decks and puts them together. So I'm really curious to see how this all glues together. The one thing that I'm missing is Wildfire. I was thinking Wildfire is also a good foil to Tron decks, which, for example, with Affinity, we really have a hard time because they just get that mana advantage. We don't really have a way to stop it. And then, especially with like Ephemery Tron, I played against it a few times. I'm still not sure what the game plan is there. I don't know if you can really, fight. Like, how do you attack a deck like that? Because they can assemble their value loop quickly, and even with a spell bomb or a well placed removal, they have so much recursion that something's gonna stick at some point. And it's like green. They have the dignitary that's white. So like even with Pyroblast or Hydroblast, you're not really. They have Moment's Peace. Like they run all of these cards in colors that we can't really attack or counter. So I was thinking, like it started with the classic John Wildfire with like Shaman and Wildfire, and then just like the value train of Wellspring, Bargain, etc. Um, but I feel like this deck is probably built to recur even harder than Affinity and Wildfire. Of course, we have Hunter main deck um, for Initiative. Like Hunter and Chrysalis, I run those in my Gruul ramp deck, and again, barring any crazy, um, fairy deck or sneaky snacker deck with lots of flyers. But even like this deck, even against sneaky snackers, you can find your breath weapon, and we have so many ways to draw and cycle what we have between Lembas and Wellspring and all the fast effects. Um, so so yeah, for the sideboard, I don't think there's anything like insane to call out. It looks pretty straightforward, right? Like three duress against control, fairies against spy or dredge or anything like that. More breath weapons for the aggro matchup, grudge for affinity. This is another thing. Definitely played against ancient grudge a couple times as affinity. Just like the 2-for-1 can be backbreaking if timed well. And it's not a card that you see a lot, right? Like usually I see more of annuls or dust to dust, like in the Boros or Ordzov type decks. Um, Pyro for the blue matchup. Not sure about it. I guess Heritage Reclamation is kind of a catch-all for like artifact enchantment removal, and then the exiling, drawing a card. Huge value if placed well, right? For like a Dread Return or something like that, or like even just a sneaky snacker. And then Weather the Storm, of course, for the life gain, which is another card that I would really want in my 75. Um, Again, setting aside um, affinity, right? Like which is it's kind of my deck of choice. But I think as time goes on, I want to start opening up to a few more strategies based on what I'm learning, right? Just to kind of get a different feel for um, what you can do in this format and whether certain strategies work better. Of course, switching decks means a bit of a learning curve. Although I think there's quite a bit of overlap, right? But for example, we don't have Refurbisher here. Of course, we don't have the artifact lands. We have gardens that can feed these early sack outlets, right? Um, so yeah, maybe we will stream this soon. I'm thinking like my line of thought is to keep using Grixis Affinity as kind of like my baseline and my grinding deck, and then once I go positive with the records, then I can kind of reinvest the free points into these different decks and maybe find a new favorite. The other deck that I want to briefly mention, I'm not gonna do a deep dive, but this is so I was on a 4-0 run in my last stream. I played the fifth game offline without streaming it. Unfortunately, we lost. We went 4-1, and it was this deck against this Boros synthesizer deck, which is another deck I think is specifically built um, to prey on the affinities and Jund Wildfires of the format because A, it has, Glinthawk, Skyfisher, Flyers, which cannot be interacted favorably with Shaman, which are a staple of both decks. And then you have bouncing your synthesizer, bouncing your Lembus, bouncing your Radiant Fountain. I guess mostly with the Skyfisher with the Hawk, it has to be an artifact, right? Or Fisher, the Inspectors with Skyfisher, Journey to Nowhere for Chrysalis, for Mirror Enforcer, right? It just generates a lot of value, and it can definitely keep up with the various, Wellspring engines that fuel the other two decks, and then of course you have even things like Bajuka Bog for Graveyard that you can keep bouncing back and forth. And the way the three games played out, the first one was kind of grindy, but it was one of those games where they started bouncing their synthesizer, developing their board, and then for some reason they always had the answer to whatever I was doing. So blast my Enforcer, bolt my um, Utram, right? Um, gain life, Journey to Nowhere, my Enforcer. They even Traben Charmed my munitions, right? It was just kind of what the first game was one of those games. Second one was really grindy. Um, I guess they don't have as much recursion as us in the long term, so I could kind of trade one for one their creatures. I have to say like the player that we played against was really good. Their history is like full of 5-0s with this deck, so their experience also played a part as per usual. But yeah, they just generated. They could like we the game ran long. I got them to a point where I could still pick back up whatever was killed, or just kind of like come back after they ran out of gas and took game two. Game three was almost a non-game because I think I mulliganed to 6. I had 2 artifact lands. They had Dust to Dust immediately, and then I cast into the fire, and I was left without lands, and that was it. So this is also another deck that I'm kind of keeping in mind. Um, just kind of like that value engine. Again, I'm really attracted to this kind of like repeatable value. I'm not sure how some of the matchups go with these, but there's another one that's on my radar. And then beyond that, there's a few combo decks that I really want to play, specifically Spy combo. My darling is Walls combo. Like I played it casually a lot. I don't know if it's the kind of deck that I want to run through a league. I guess we could at some point. Again, Walls combo. The issue with Walls combo is just Shaman and just like direct removal, which right now is pretty much everywhere. I mean, there's ways to deal with it, right? But again, like as a starting point, um, it's really hard. It's really hard to make it work when you're just facing a lot of cast downs and blasts and all of that. So I think that's something that you can mitigate with experience. But I have to assume that the initial league runs will be full of almost but not quite, just because the counterplay that I face is gonna be more experienced than me, right? Um, but yeah, so was a quick update on kind of like opening up to more decks than just Grixis Affinity, which we'll keep playing. But then as time goes on, these are kind of like the decks that I'm kind of itching to play. So maybe we'll mix it up sometimes. I've definitely played other decks before. Before Grixis Affinity, I'll probably play other decks afterwards. But yeah, um, hope to see you in my stream. Do give my channel a follow, both on Twitch and on YouTube. I'm trying to get all of that set up so that we can stay in touch and I can keep producing content for you. And yeah, hope to see you soon. Have a great day. Take care.